Hello everyone, welcome back to BistroBuzz TV. And today we're going to be making some chuck tender steak in the crock pot, and we're going to be adding some potatoes and carrots and peas and a little bit of an onion and some spices, and we're also going to coat the meat in some flour and a few spices also. But we are going to be using the little skillet that we have in another video here on the channel to place the meat into the skillet to begin with and just get it a little bit crispiness on the outside before we put it into the crock pot. So let's get started with our chuck tender steak in the crock pot with vegetables today. I'll show you real quick what I did purchase. This is the chuck tender steak. It is already cut into the different sections. You can get one of the large pot roast if you would like, but what I wanted to do is, since I have a smaller crock pot that I'm using today, I wanted the ones that was already cut, and this seemed to be the perfect size for these. You can see that the first one is about 1 pound and it was $9.08, and the second one is almost a pound and it was $7.28. But I'm going to be taking these, I'm going to coat them real quickly with some flour and a salt and pepper and a little bit of brown sugar I'm going to add also, and I'm going to coat them and put them in the little skillet. So let's get started with that step. I'm going to take some Country Crock, the calcium butter, and I'm going to place it into the little skillet you can see here. And again, I'm using the Toastmaster little 6-inch skillet. I love this little skillet. It is great. I don't have to get out the large one to do this. And I just wanted to show everyone that you can do something like this in the small skillet. You do not have to use a very large skillet, but I will show you along the way here. But first, what I do is I put butter in the skillet and I'm going to get it warm, and we will go ahead and put some flour on the meat, and we will do that in just a moment. I'll show you real quick. I'm going to get a gallon Ziploc bag like you see right here, and I'm going to place about a cup full of flour in there, and then I'm going to place about 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar, and then I'm going to put a little bit of sea salt and black pepper into the Ziploc bag. And then what I'm going to do is take the meat, I'm going to drop the meat into the bag, coat the meat with the flour, and then I'm going to place the meat into the skillet here and just brown it just a little bit before I put it into the crock pot. This is how I put the flour and the brown sugar and the salt and pepper together. I just get a 2 cup, this is a glass 2 cup measuring cup, and I fill it to 1 cup of flour, and then I add the 2 tablespoons of the brown sugar and then the salt and the pepper, and I'm just going to stir this really well. I'm going to place it into the plastic Ziploc bag, and then I will place the meat into the bag, and we'll coat the meat really well with the flour mixture, and we'll be right back. See here how I'm doing this? I just drop the meat into the bag and I coat it lightly on both sides of the meat, and then what I'm going to do is place that into the little skillet. Before we start placing the meat into the little skillet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the little skillet on. If you get one of these little skillets, they are the greatest. It's just so much better than getting out the large skillet. And it's so easy when you have, you know, the smaller portions to cook. But even like the portions I'm cooking now are going to be a larger portion, but I'm still using the skillet. It's just easier to move the meat around. It's just easier to wash, and placing it on the counter, it doesn't take up as much space as a larger skillet. I have really enjoyed this little skillet, so if you have an opportunity to get one of these, I think you will really, really enjoy it. So what I'm going to do is, you can see here, I'm just going to melt the butter, and then I'm going to place the meat into the little skillet and just brown it just enough before I put it into the crock pot. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quickly. Place 2 pieces of the meat into the little skillet. I'm going to brown these really quickly and place these into the crock pot, but you can see how this is done. These 2 pieces are fairly large. So I've got them into the skillet. I've got 5 more pieces to actually brown also, so we'll be right back. So while the meat is browning, I'm going to take the chicken broth. I got the unsalted this time, and also beef broth. I like to mix these. I like the taste when they're mixed, when I'm making what I'm going to be making with the chuck roast and also the vegetables. And I got the beef broth with a 50% less sodium. What I do is I fill the crock pot here. I'm going to fill it about halfway using the chicken broth and the beef broth. And I'm going to mix those and then place the meat into the broth, and then we'll be adding the vegetables. So I'm going to go ahead and add half of the box here of chicken broth and the entire can of the beef broth into the crock pot. I'm going to keep on browning each piece of meat, and I'm going to place them into the crock pot. The crock pot, we have added half of the box of the chicken broth, and also we have added a full can of the beef broth. So we'll go ahead, and each time that we brown the meat, we're going to place it into the crock pot. And I will go ahead and do this for each pieces of the meat, and we will be back. All of the chuck tender steak to the crock pot, and this is 1/2 of a box of the chicken broth, lower sodium, and also a can of the beef broth, lower sodium. So I'm going to place this on high. I'm going to let it cook for about an hour and come back, and then I'm going to add some carrots and potatoes and some onions to this. So we'll be back in about an hour. The leftover flour that you have from when you coated the meat, just keep that, because what we're going to do is use this flour for our gravy once we get to the time frame to make the gravy. So go ahead and put the flour aside. Don't throw it away. Keep this, and we're going to use this when we get closer to needing to make the gravy for the chuck roast. The chuck roast has been cooking for about an hour. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to add carrots, potatoes, and 1/2 of an onion. This was like a medium-sized onion, so I'm just going to add 1/2 of that. But I go ahead and I'm going to cut the potatoes up like this, just slices this time, not in the small little bits of pieces. I'm just going to leave them as slices. I'm going to place each of these, the carrots, potatoes, and onion, into the crock pot. I'm going to let this cook for about an hour, and then I'm going to check it again. I'm not going to add the peas right now because sometimes I don't like the texture of the peas once they've been in the crock pot for so long. What I'm going to do is add the peas closer to the time frame that we're going to be eating. About 20 to 30 minutes before eating is when I usually add the peas to the crock pot. So let's go ahead and place the vegetables into the crock pot, and we will let this cook for 1 hour. I've added the carrots, potatoes, and onions, and we're going to let it cook for an hour, and we will be back. And it should be about done once we have it in here another hour, but we're going to give it an hour. We'll check it, and then we will be back. Hello everyone. We let this cook for an hour, and then we added our carrots, potatoes, and onion, and we let it cook for another hour, and that was on high. And then what I did was I stirred it up really good, and I let it cook for another 2 hours on high, and then I turned it down to low after an hour, and then it was done. And depending on when you're actually going to serve your dinner, you can leave it in the crock pot on low, or it will be done really well after 3 to 4 hours. So if you decide to try this recipe, please leave a comment, and please visit BistroBuzz TV again very soon, and like and subscribe. Thanks everyone.